Hi, good evening everyone. Sequence, teachers, parents and guests. Welcome to the first online Lyceum talk hosted by Selakwi International School. As the COVID-19 crisis prevails, I sincerely hope that each one of you is taking all the precautions deemed necessary. Today, we have former international cricketer and BCCI General Manager, Cricket Operations, Mr. Syed Sabah Karim, to bestow us with his presence. Mr. Syed Sabah Karim, widely known as Syed Karim, was born on 14th November 1967. He was born and schooled in Patna at St. Xavier's. And from there, his journey to the Indian cricket team has indeed been remarkable. At the age of just 15 years, Mr. Karim gave a boost to his first-class career in 1982. He went on to gain knowledge about the corporate sector. He was an exceptional wicket-keeper and batsman. Mr. Karim made his ODI debut on 23rd January 1997 against one of the best teams at that time, South Africa. With great bowling talent on the other side, Mr. Karim managed to score an important half-century in his first one-day international. He went on to play for a few years, and in no time Mr. Karim had received his first test cap. Within months of playing test, at 33, he bowed out of the game due to an injury to his eye which cut short his career. Due to this tragic incident in 2001, he confirmed his retirement and decided to stay in touch with the game as a coach and a cricketer. He has been very vocal about his views on various cricketing aspects like team performance, umpiring standards and day-night test practice. On January 1, 2018, Mr. Sabah Karim was appointed by BCCI as General Manager, Cricket Operations. Primarily, his major responsibilities held as giving strategic direction to the cricket department. Sir, we look forward to have a fruitful session filled with knowledge. So, may I now invite Mr. Syed Sabah Karim to share his views on careers in sports and future of sports in post-COVID era.
Thank you so much, Daksh. Can all of you hear me, and am I visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Great. First off, thank you so much for the invite. Okay. I really look forward to having a healthy interaction with all of you. And this is addressed to the students, to the school administrators, and to the faculty members who all are present here. I hope let's have a very vibrant session and let's have a lot of learnings from this session. So let me start with how the sports industry stands as of now. All of you may have noticed that the sports industry in India is really flourishing in a big way, and one can see a rapid progress in the way the sports industry has flourished maybe over the past decade or so. And this is a very healthy and a very heartening sign. So there are two aspects to the entire sports industry. One, if one is looking at a career option in sports, there are two ways of going about it. Number one is to become a professional athlete, which obviously means that you receive a professional fee for playing the sport you love playing. And second is working in the subsidiary industry that is related to sports. For instance, coaches, physiotherapists, sports psychologists, strength and conditioning trainers, then you have the performance analysts, you have the sports nutritionists, then you have the umpires, the match referees, plus sports administration is coming up in a big way. There's so many leagues that are mushroomed in sports all over India. And leave aside IPL, there are other sporting leagues that have come up. For instance, the hockey league, kabaddi, table tennis and wrestling. So all these leagues are coming up. Football has come up in a big way, especially the ISL. It offers huge opportunities to youngsters who want to pursue sports as a career option. As I said before, not only as a professional athlete, but also as a professional who can work with their specified skills in the areas I just mentioned. So this is a huge bonus, or one can say a huge opportunity for all the youngsters to look up to. So your career option may not be limited in the so-called prescribed field, but sports industry offers many more opportunities for all of you to excel. and take your career in a very positive direction. Um, Now, I think what is also to understand at this point of time is that as a nation, have we become a sporting nation or not? If you look at some of the global sporting nations, all of them are doing very well because their industry there has flourished based on sports. You take example of UK or States or Germany or France or even some of the Latin American countries. All of them are sporting nations. So that is why the entire focus is how to invest by the central or by the state government or by the establishment to pump in more money so that more and more people can work in this area. That's something which is required even in India. So I always believe, and I have reiterated this on so many different platforms, that for India to flourish, it is very important, one, to understand that we have to become a sporting nation. Now, how to become a sporting nation? The only way one can think of becoming a sporting nation is if more and more youngsters get into sports in a very active manner. When I say active manner, I mean that they need to look at becoming a professional athlete. I don't see that happening at this stage. We are more focused or more oriented towards the so-called typical career options like medicine or like engineering or like management and so on and so forth. But very few youngsters are coming up even at this stage to take up career as a professional athlete. So that's one area of concern for us. But hopefully with the kind of progress we have seen, which I've also mentioned right now, I do expect more and more youngsters to think of becoming a professional athlete in India. And I think that will be the stage when all of us can proudly say that India is becoming a sporting nation. Now I'll come back to sports administration again. With the mushroom of so many sporting leagues, there is a huge window of opportunity for youngsters to take up sports administration as a career option. And hopefully I want more and more of institutes such as yours or other higher education institutes to think of having a curriculum that is based on sports industry that will eventually help the youngsters look at this as a career option. So these are some of my thoughts on thinking of sports industry as a career option or as a professional athlete. So it's up to the youngsters to figure out what they want to do in their life. And if you are serious about particular sports which you enjoy, then there are numerous opportunities coming your way, wherein you can think of having sports as a feasible career option.
Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed worth thinking upon. So now moving on to the questions. So I
Can you
myself
be a little bit louder, Daksh? I can't hear you properly.
yes, sir. So am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I myself am a cricket player and I know just about what pressure feels like on the field. But when it comes to international matches, the hype is totally different. The whole nation looks up to you and this is a whole lot of pressure to carry on. The spectators, especially in India, are so enthusiastic that they make it hard to play. So sir, how tough does it become for someone to pull out his best performance? And how did you manage to do it?
Daksh, pressure is wonderful. I think you need to take it like that. The idea is to what extent you're able to absorb it. And to be very honest, all the professional athletes, when they play in front of the crowd, it actually inspires them to perform well. It is not the other way around. And I always noticed this during my playing days, as my experience, and also in my interaction with some of the wonderful athletes I've played with. It really allows them to grow in character and to grow in their own game. And I think that is the best part about playing in front of huge crowds. The moment you allow the crowds to take over your own senses, that's the time when the pressure builds on you. So the idea is to block away all those pressures and just enjoy the fact that you've been given an opportunity to play in front of such a massive crowd. So for a professional athlete, it has to work the other way. You should look at the crowds and see, oh God, this is wonderful. This is the place for me to perform. I'm like, it is like a gladiatorial skills you need to have. I think that's the best way of looking at it. And that is the only way you can absorb the pressure and play to the best of your potential. That's what I've seen, on the cricket field, and also, as I said, in my interactions with so many of my colleagues.
Thank you so much, sir. Now the house is open to questions from the audience. I request you to raise your hand to ask a question. Please keep your cameras on while asking a question. So may we proceed now? Yes, Avnish, I request you to proceed forward with your question.
Hello, am I visible?
No, Avnish, now.
Am I visible now?
Yes, you're visible now.
First of all, good morning. It's a great pleasure to meet you, seriously. Like it's a dream
Thank
come
you.
true. Sir, I was meaning to ask you about what were your experiences as the head of BCCI and General Manager of Operations?
When I joined BCCI as General Manager Cricket Operations in January 2018, and my work profile was quite simple. Was to set up strategic directions in terms of domestic cricket, how to improve the quality of domestic cricket. When I joined, only about 28 states were affiliated to BCCI. We have increased that number now to 38. We have seen all-inclusive growth in cricket all over the country. Many of you may not be aware that now all the northeastern states are part of BCCI. So that was a huge challenge for us. So overall, my experience has been extremely challenging, very dynamic, but I've been able to focus on work because of the kind of support I've received from my colleagues and also the respective state bodies. And there are so many stakeholders in BCCI. The biggest stakeholders are the various state associations. Then the players players matter a lot to BCCI. So BCCI is basically has grown because of the contribution that we have received from the cricketers, past and present. So they happen to be the biggest stakeholders for BCCI. So very important that you provide them the best infrastructure possible so that they're able to perform to the best of their potential. Now, very important fact is that is the support staff that helps cricket to take place on the field, and I'm talking about the logistics side. We have to put in some logistical structure for our match referees and our umpires. They're traveling all across the country, plus the infrastructure, the wickets, the ground conditions. All these states they have different venues, so we set in particular parameters which all these grounds or venues have to adhere to. So there's a lot of work to be done. But yeah, it has been quite invigorating to work in this organization. One has learned quite a lot, and hopefully not only Team India, but the other national teams are also doing well. The women national team has come up in a big way. We see them performing well at the international level now. So we have a growth development program set aside for girls cricket in India. And similar things are happening for junior cricket in India also. So a lot of work is taking place. It is a very vibrant organization, and it's good to contribute at this stage.
Tell him to raise his hand. He has to raise his hand for asking one question.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to our next question, we have this question from Ronit Khatta.
Sir, I wanted to, first of all, good evening. I wanted to ask that mostly you find the players who are from small states and towns often move to a different location to step into first-class cricket. What is actually the scope of players from smaller states in the Indian cricket team, and what are the positive and negative aspects of these situations?
Okay, Ronit, if you have seen the performance of Indian team for the past maybe 10 or 15 years, there's been a massive change. It's because from late 1990s onwards, there has been influx of players in the national side who have come from tier 2, tier 3 towns. In fact, some of them have come from villages. So that is one reason why the Indian team is doing very well. But if you look at history of Indian cricket from say 1950s onwards till 1980s, 1990s, cricket was more or less restricted to the big towns like Mumbai or Bangalore or maybe Tamil Nadu or Chennai or to some extent in Delhi. And we've had players only from these areas. But since the time cricket has opened up and we have had lot of these players coming from smaller towns, it has grown not only in performance but also in stature and quality. So things have changed now. That is one reason I had explained in my earlier answer that that cricket has spread all over the country. In fact, we have a team playing from Meghalaya, from Arunachal Pradesh, from Mizoram, all the northeastern towns, in addition to the so-called metros. So I think it's a healthy exchange of quality that is taking place. And if you happen to be from a smaller state, do not be disheartened, do not be discouraged. There is enough opportunities for you to do well. And now the selection criteria, not only at the state level but also at the national level, has become extremely transparent and very robust. So if you're performing very well, there is no one in the world who can stop you from playing higher level of cricket. I think this is the message I convey to all the aspiring cricketers who come from smaller towns. Work on your basics, work on your skills, keep performing, have a sound temperament, and if you start piling up performances, there's no way the selectors can ignore you, because it is an open world, it is an open country now, and more cricketers are welcome to showcase their talent and their skill.
Thank you, sir. That was actually very motivating. Now we'll have our next question from Abhideep Sahu.
Good evening, sir. Question in my mind is that cricket has evolved in today's world and has moved far from orthodox 5-day test matches to a swifter format.
Repeat that again, please. I can't hear you.
So, am I audible now?
Just hold on. Yeah, say that again.
The cricket has evolved in today's world and has moved far from the orthodox 5-day test matches to a swifter format, and that is T20. There we see that it is far more important for a wicketkeeper batsman to be a skilled batsman than to be a good wicketkeeper. So do you think this has to be this way, and as a selector, what would be your preference and why?
That's a tricky one, Abhideep. It depends on the requirements of a particular side. But if you're seeking my opinion, I'll be very honest with you. For test matches, because it requires a test of skills over a period of 5 days, I would always put my number one wicketkeeper in the side. But it does not mean that the number one wicketkeeper is not expected to contribute. Gone are the days when a specialist wicketkeeper would come in at number 10, number 11. Now you expect a specialist keeper to come in at number 7 and contribute. So if you look at the bowlers who come in at number 8, number 9, number 10, we expect them to contribute. And that is why some of the teams have become so strong. So my priority would be to have a specialist keeper, but work on that keeper's batting skill so that that person can also contribute to the total of the side. This is for test matches. You know, for one day and T20, it depends on the requirements of the team. I would suggest that you get I would prefer to have a batting all-rounder who can also don the gloves for me. And we have seen over the past maybe 10 years or so that there has been a distinct change in terms of a definition of a wicketkeeper in the shorter format of the game. You want the keeper to contribute in a big way. We've seen some great cricketers coming through, wicketkeepers coming through the system. But that does not mean that when you pick a wicketkeeper for a shorter format, he should not be adept behind the stumps. Someone like Adam Gilchrist or MS Dhoni or even Rahul Dravid for that matter. When he became the wicketkeeper for the Indian side, he worked on his keeping skills and he became a decent wicketkeeper who donned the gloves for India. So that's the kind of parity one has to bring into the side.
Thank you, sir.
So now I request Kartikeya Gautam to please proceed with your question.
Good evening, sir. It's an absolute honor to talk with you, sir.
Such a pleasure. Please go ahead.
तो मेरा सवाल ये है कि एक खिलाड़ी के करियर में कई उतार चढ़ाव आते हैं जो उसे मजबूत भी बनाते हैं और कई बार कमजोर बना देते हैं, कई बार निराश कर देते हैं। सर, आपके जीवन में ऐसा कौन सा मोड़ था, ऐसा कौन सा पड़ाव था जिसने आपको दिशा दिखाई या फिर आपका माइंडसेट चेंज किया?
पुरानी बातें याद करनी पड़ेगी मुझे लग रहा है। मैं एक टियर 2 टाउन से आता हूँ, पटना happens to be the capital of बिहार। और जब मैंने खेलना शुरू किया तो वहाँ से बहुत कम प्लेयर्स, मुझे लगता है कि 1 या 2 ही प्लेयर्स थे जिन्होंने बिहार के लिए खेला था उस समय रणजी ट्रॉफी में। तो हमारे सामने ज़्यादा कुछ बड़ा लक्ष्य था नहीं, पर चूंकि खेल से इतना ज़्यादा लगाव था तो कोशिश यही थी कि पूरे फोकस के साथ, पूरी मेहनत के साथ क्रिकेट खेले, क्योंकि हम एंजॉय करते थे मैचेस खेलना। तो मुझे लगता है सबसे बड़ा टर्निंग पॉइंट मेरे क्रिकेट जीवन में तब आया जब मेरा चयन अंडर 19 इंडियन टीम के लिए हुआ। ये 82-83 की बात है जब हमारी नेशनल टीम गई थी वेस्ट इंडीज खेलने के लिए। वो दौरा मेरे लिए काफ़ी अहम दौरा था। वहाँ से वापस आने के बाद मुझे ये लगा कि अगर मैं इस पर और मेहनत करूँगा तो आने वाले समय में मैं क्रिकेट को एक करियर के रूप में ले सकता हूँ। तो वो बहुत बड़ा और अहम मोड़ था मेरे क्रिकेट करियर में। उसके बाद भारत के लिए खेलने का मौका मिला। फिर एक समय ऐसा आया जब मुझे लग रहा था कि मैं और आगे बढ़ सकता हूँ, पर अनफॉर्चुनेटली क्रिकेट बॉल इंजरी हो गई मेरे आंख में, तब उसके आगे मैं खेल नहीं पाया। और तब मुझे फर्स्ट क्लास क्रिकेट और इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट से रिटायरमेंट लेना पड़ा। तो ये मुझे लगता है कि 2 अहम कड़ी थे। पर सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि क्रिकेट बहुत कुछ सिखाता है हमें अपने बारे में, अपने पर्सनालिटी के बारे में, अपने कैरेक्टर के बारे में, एक भारतीय होने के बारे में। और ये एक ऐसी अलग प्रकार की जिंदगी है जो बहुत कुछ मदद करती है आम जीवन में भी। और मुझे लगता है कि ये बहुत बड़ी सीख रही है मेरे जीवन में।
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, sir. Now I request Shan Shah to ask this question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, sir, as we all know that all the sports will go under a tremendous change after the post-COVID era.
Yeah.
So, in the particular field of cricket, I would like to ask you that what would be the main norms in the post-COVID era? So, how will the cricket adapt? How will it change?
See, I think it's important for all of us to be extremely proactive. If you look at global sports, the way post-COVID era sports has started to take place now. Look at all the football leagues all over Europe now. Look at English Premier League, look at Spanish Premier League, look at the Italian Premier League, look at the Bundesliga. So that is a great learning for the cricket fraternity also. Even recently in England, they are having a Pakistan versus England Test series. Before that, they played against West Indies. So from all this, we have learned a lot as a cricket organization in India. I'm talking about BCCI. So I think this is the kind of message we are planning to convey to all our respective affiliated units, including the state associations, that somehow or the other we have to get back on the cricket field. So we work closely with the central and state government guidelines to restart cricket in this post-COVID era. In fact, it is not even post-COVID era. So during COVID era, it's very important to get cricket back on the field. For instance, you may have learned from the media that we are having the IPL in Dubai this season. We had to shift to Dubai because of logistical concern in India. But at the same time, excuse me, we are planning to have a home series in India, a women home series. We are looking to host the Sri Lankan women team here in India in October. For that, we are making adequate precautions. First up, we have prepared a medical and safety protocol that would allow both Indian and Sri Lankan cricketers to come to India. The Sri Lankan cricketers to come to India as a visiting team, being quarantined for about 14 days, and then start their home campaign against us. From India's perspective, we plan to have a preparatory camp either in Bangalore or some other city for about a 15-day to 20-day, and then get on with the home series against Sri Lanka. So all these are in the pipeline, but we have a separate medical department that works closely with the state and government agencies to chalk out a program that will be beneficial for all the players. At the same time, we do plan to restart our domestic season. Generally, our domestic cricket starts in September, but due to COVID, we have not been able to do so. But we intend to start that shortly, maybe by October and December. So all this is there in the plan, and hopefully we will be able to execute it. But yes, it is time for not only the cricket organization, but I think all the other sports organizations to work in this direction, so that we're able to convey a message not only to our athletes, but to the entire sporting fraternity that we are ready to restart sports in our country.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you, sir. Now I request Ekaksha Pratap to ask this question.
Good evening, sir. I am Ekaksha, and it's really a great honor to meet you. And so my question to you is that did you have it in your mind that you wanted to pursue cricket as a career since your childhood? What were your experiences as a child in your school days?
I was blessed with the fact that I started to perform well at a very young age. For instance, I played for India under-19 when I was a 14-year-old kid. Then I made my first class debut at the age of 15. So that helped me decide very early in my life that I do want to pursue cricket as a career for me. And I'm thankful that I took up cricket as my career, because even now I'm working in the same field. So I always feel I'm extremely fortunate to have a career like this, where during my active days I enjoyed the game, and after post my retirement I've been able to work in this field. And I reiterate this again, that the sports industry is really growing up. It is in such a robust stage where youngsters can take decision very quickly in terms of its feasibility and to what extent they want to pursue. So I was kind of lucky that I was able to decide very early in my life, helped by my family, my parents, my friends, plus the kind of organizations I worked in. They're all very encouraging towards my career decision.
Add them as a presenter.
Thank you, Ekaksha. Now I would like to invite Devanand Shukla to ask this question.
Good evening, sir. सही हुआ है सर। आजकल हर भारतीय बच्चे का ख्वाब है कि वह क्रिकेट में अपना करियर बनाए। तो मेरे सर दो प्रश्न ऐसे ही संबंधित हैं कि क्या आईपीएल के आने से क्रिकेट में करियर बनाने की संभावना बढ़ गई है, और आईपीएल आने के बाद डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेट मैच पर क्या प्रभाव पड़ा है और उसके महत्व में क्या बदलाव आया है?
इसमें सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि आईपीएल के आने से एक बहुत ही पॉजिटिव असर पड़ा है भारतीय क्रिकेटर्स में या फिर क्रिकेट फ्रेटर्निटी में। एक ये शानदार अब करियर ऑप्शन हो गया है यहाँ के खिलाड़ियों के लिए। तो सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि आईपीएल आया क्योंकि हमारे जो डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेट है वो बहुत शानदार प्लेयर्स निकाल के ला रहा था, और हम लोगों को ऐसा लगा या बीसीसीआई को ऐसा लगा कि एक साथ सिर्फ 15 खिलाड़ी खेल सकते हैं भारतीय टीम के लिए, पर हमारे पास इतने अच्छे खिलाड़ी निकल कर आ रहे थे, तो उनका क्या किया जाए? अगर वो सिर्फ डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेट खेलते रहेंगे तो उनका करियर बहुत जल्दी समाप्त हो जाएगा। तो उनके लिए बहुत आवश्यक था कि हम उनके लिए एक और प्लेटफॉर्म बनाएं, और इसीलिए आईपीएल की शुरुआत हुई। और आईपीएल की वजह से फायदा बहुत सारे डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेटर्स को हुआ है कि अब उनको एक प्लेटफॉर्म मिल गया है शानदार प्रदर्शन करने के लिए, और आने वाले समय में अगर वो भारतीय टीम के लिए ना भी खेले तब भी उनके लिए सिर्फ अगर आईपीएल खेलना ही बहुत बड़ी बात हो जाती है, और उससे वो एक अपना एक करियर बना सकते हैं। पर धीरे धीरे अब अगर आप आईपीएल ना भी खेलें तब भी बीसीसीआई का प्रयास यही है कि एक डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेटर के लिए भी क्रिकेट एक अच्छा करियर ऑप्शन हो जाना चाहिए। उनकी प्रोफेशनल फीस या मैच फीस आने वाले समय में बहुत जल्दी हम लोग एक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिस्टम लाने वाले हैं डोमेस्टिक प्लेयर्स के लिए। तो इन सबसे ये निकल कर आएगा कि जिस तरह से एक कॉर्पोरेट एग्जीक्यूटिव, एक मिडिल लेवल कॉर्पोरेट एग्जीक्यूटिव को जितना साल में उसकी सैलरी होती है उससे कम 10 to 15% ज़्यादा एक डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेटर को मिलना चाहिए, और न ही केवल पुरुषों को पर महिलाओं को भी इस प्रकार का पैसा मिलना चाहिए। तभी वो सोच सकते हैं क्रिकेट को करियर बनाने के लिए। कई सारी संस्थाएं हैं, कई सारे कॉर्पोरेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइजेज हैं जो एथलीट्स को अभी भी जॉब्स दे रहे हैं, तो वो भी बहुत अच्छी बहुत बड़ी बात है। बीसीसीआई का प्रयास यही रहा है कि हम निरंतर एंगेज करें कई सारे कॉर्पोरेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के साथ कि वो कई जो डोमेस्टिक क्रिकेटर्स हैं उनको अपने यहाँ काम पर लगाएं, ताकि इससे भी उनको बहुत ज़्यादा मदद मिलेगी। मुझे लगता है कि अब क्रिकेट एक ऐसे पड़ाव पर पहुँच चुका है जहाँ पर एक युवा क्रिकेट को एक करियर के रूप में ले सकता है।
थैंक यू सर। सर मेरा दूसरा प्रश्न है कि सर क्या क्रिकेट में हम खिलाड़ी के अलावा किसी और रूप में करियर बना सकते हैं, जैसे अंपायर, कमेंटेटर, फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट और फिटनेस ट्रेनर? तो सर इसमें इसका कितना स्कोप है और हमें क्या प्रक्रिया निभानी पड़ती है?
स्कोप बहुत ज़्यादा है, उसके बारे में मैंने अपने ओपनिंग कमेंट्स में भी कहा था देवानंद, या कि स्पोर्ट्स से रिलेटेड कई सारी चीज़ें हैं जो एक यंगस्टर कर सकता है। और आपने सही बताया, जैसे कि अंपायरिंग हो गई, परफॉर्मेंस एनालिस्ट हो गया, कोच हो गया, फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट हो गए, ट्रेनर हो गए, कई सारी पेरिफेरल जॉब्स हैं जो आदमी कर सकता है। और उसके साथ साथ अब तो एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म शुरू हो गया, बायोमैकेनिक्स। बायोमैकेनिक्स का मतलब यही है कि बॉडी की जो मैकेनिक्स है उसके तरह से आपको खेल खेलना चाहिए, उसकी तरह से आपको शेप में रहना चाहिए। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा फील्ड है जो धीरे धीरे कर उभर रहा है। जहाँ तक कि जो इसकी प्रोसेस है, ये सब के सब प्रोफेशनल असाइनमेंट्स हैं, प्रोफेशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, और इसके लिए कई सारी संस्थाएं हैं जो इस तरह के की पढ़ाई करवा रही है इस समय, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय भी और राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे भी। तो मुझे लगता है कि अगर किसी को इसमें रुचि है तो निश्चित रूप से इसके बारे में आप पढ़ें, आप जानकारी लें, और फिर उसको आप फॉलो कर सकते हैं। उदाहरण के रूप में हमारे पास हमारे यहाँ एक परफॉर्मेंस सेंटर ऑफ एक्सेलेंस है, नेशनल क्रिकेट एकेडमी बेंगलोर में, जो इस समय राहुल द्रविड़ जो है उसके डायरेक्टर हैं। वहाँ पर हम लोगों ने ये सभी कोर्सेज शुरू किए हैं, कोचेस के लिए भी और स्पोर्ट्स फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट के लिए भी, ट्रेनर के लिए भी, और ये सारे के सारे बहुत जल्दी हम लोग ऑनलाइन कोर्सेज भी शुरू करने वाले हैं। तो जिसको भी इंटरेस्ट है वो हमारे वेबसाइट पर जाकर इसके बारे में जानकारी ले सकता है, और फिर उस हिसाब से उस पर आप लोग काम कर सकते हैं। तो हाँ, पर बहुत अभी मौका है यंगस्टर्स के लिए इन सब एरियाज में देखने के लिए, और काफ़ी आसानी से आप इसको कर सकते हैं।
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, sir. Now we'll have our next question from Khushi Pandey.
Am I visible?
No, you are not yet. Yes, you are visible now.
Am I visible? Okay, thank you. A very good evening, sir.
Good evening, Khushi.
Sir, earlier while you were talking to us, you said you talked about incorporating, a sports curriculum. So I wanted to know if you have any suggestions or any plans, on about like how both the academic as well as sports curriculum could be, incorporated together so that they could both run efficiently together side by side?
This is more for the academician to answer, but I can give you my inputs on this. When I say sports curriculum, there are so many areas in which a youngster can prosper. And I've said this again and again. Is for instance, as a sports physio, as a sports psychiatrist, as a strength and conditioning trainer, as a sports nutritionist, as a performance analyst. So these are areas where a youngster can really work in that field. I think for that person to decide a career in these areas, it is equally important for all of us to understand that you have to have a curriculum that will allow youngsters to prosper in this area. So there are certain organizations who are working. For instance, Sports Authority of India, they have a curriculum for all these subjects that I've mentioned, but it is not in the mainstream as yet. And when I talk about sports curriculum, I talk about including all this in the mainstream of our education culture. And they should start from say 11th onwards, and then also into college education. And I think with this new education policy that has come in, this is the time for all of us to put our heads together and then try and incorporate all these areas in the curriculum. For instance, I'm sure you also have a physical education subject in your school. But I mean, whatever I could recall from my school is physical education was more of a drill subject. You would go out, do some drills, and then go back to your class and stuff like that. But I think a time has come now to maybe rearrange that, or maybe look at reinventing that, so that more and more youngsters can be interested in a specific subject that I've mentioned. So there are certain areas to work on, but I think overall the time has come for all of us to understand that you need to have these kind of subjects also in your school and college curriculum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Moving on to the next question, we will take this question from Parit Uttral.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I wanted to ask, what is the prospect of new budding women cricketers in India with the coming up of Women IPL in 2020?
Oh, huge, massive opportunities coming up in the way of the girl cricketers in India. And we're working closely with our stakeholders to try and promote girls cricket in India in a big way. For instance, it is important for all the state associations to engage with respective schools in their state or in their district to encourage women cricket in their school. And the same is for colleges also. We have seen a huge spurt in the number of women cricketers or girl cricketers coming through our system. At the state level, we organize under 16 sports tournament. Then BCI comes from the picture, and we have an under 19 interstate tournament for them. We have under 23 interstate tournament for them. Then we have the under 23 interstate tournament for them. And you rightly mentioned the Women IPL is coming up. Right now it is more it is restricted to only 3 teams. This year again we only have 3 teams. But maybe in a couple of years' time it will open up the way men's IPL has. So we will offer opportunities to the franchisees to buy teams so that more and more of our domestic cricketers can play Women IPL. Money has grown, the professional fees for these players have grown. And I'll give you a wonderful instance. There's this girl who comes from a remote village in Kashmir, and she played for JNK last year and did quite well. So we included her in the Women IPL team last season. And I think the professional fee was also quite good. It was a healthy amount. You wouldn't believe it that the entire village was so happy and excited to see her play. So the day the match was telecast, the entire village watched her play that women IPL match. So it is so heartening to note that girl cricket has grown and has reached to the remotest corners of our country. And I think there is again, a huge platform for girl cricketers to take up cricket in a professional manner.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pari. Now we'll have a next question from Lohenba.
Sir, am I visible?
Yes, you are. Oh, so good to see you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, my question is that, sir, being a wicket keeper, who do you think was the toughest and fastest bowler to keep?
Fastest bowler to keep. Now or during my days? Fastest bowler I kept to was Javagal Srinath. At his peak, this was 97-98 when I played. So he was very quick. And I couldn't get your first question, but spinner, I think most challenging was Anil Kumble. Because he was such a tall man and he would bowl in a very fastest pace. So it was not easy to keep wickets. But I really enjoyed keeping wickets to both these bowlers. Am I able to answer you properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Lohenba. Now we'll have a next question from Nilanjana.
Yes, sir.
Nilanjana, I request you to ask your question.
Yes, sir. ये दिव्यांश मोरा का नंबर काटेगा.
So I think there's a issue on our side. So I'll request Yash Singhal to ask this question.
Hello, sir. Can you see me?
Yes, go ahead, but I can't see you. You're audible.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, my question to you was, sir, many players who play cricket, they go from domestic level to international level. So, sir, from going to domestic level, some players are stuck in domestic level only, sir. So, sir, they are not so professional that they can become an umpire or become a coach, and they are not so good to compete with international players. So, they are stuck in between. So, what are the opportunities for them, and how can they deal for this, sir?
See, that's the nature of the game. Some will get to play for the nation, some may get to play IPL, but some of them, as you rightly said, they end up playing only domestic cricket. So I think it's very important for such players. Yes, I think
Hello, sir. I think there's an issue on your side. Sir, I'm audible. Might be having a network issue there. Hello, sir. Sir, you're muted. So please unmute yourself.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah, so get back to your question, Yash. I'm saying it is important for such players to realize that they need to look at some other profession which is related to cricket. For instance, you can continue to play domestic cricket till the age of say 32, 33. It depends on your performance. But I think once you are in your in your 30s, they need to look at some other profession. For instance, there is a pathway which we have created for cricketers to get into coaching, to get into umpiring, to become match referee, to become trainers. So there are so many of these former domestic cricketers who have taken up this profession. So it's very important for these players to start preparing in the late 20s or early 30s so that they can have a career once their domestic cricket career is over. It is a tough ask, but that's where we step in as an organization, families step in, the coaches step in to explain all this, all these nuances to the individual, so that they're able to decide very early as to which pathway to follow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yash. We move on to our next question, which will be from Lakshya Jindal.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So my question is that if someone looks forward to having a career in cricket, what are the steps that you suggest one should take, and what is the role of cricket association in this scenario?
To become a professional, cricketer, you need to start playing at the age group level, which is say the under 16s. For boys, we conduct under 16s, and then you graduate to under 19s, to under 23, and then the senior side. And the way cricket is organized in India, it is all through the respective state associations. And most of the state associations, they run their own cricket centers, and they conduct, either inter-club matches or inter-district matches or inter-school matches. So an aspiring cricketer has to find out about the venues to play in their particular city, and then join a club or an academy, so that you get enough chances to perform, so that you're able to play for your state side or your district side. So that is how it goes. There is a definite progress chart which everybody has to follow to reach the top. But it depends on the skill of the player and the kind of hard work one is willing to put in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lakshay. Now I request Shrestha Niyogi to ask a question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, my question is, when and how did you realize that you want to take up cricket as an occupation?
I think when I played for the under-19 national team, quite early in my life, I was 14, 15 when I represented India. So when I interacted with my fellow colleagues and then had a chat with the coach of the national team, and I got the impression that I do have the skills and the talent to perform well and to play for India, but I need to pursue it with a definite passion. So that's the time when I realized that if I work hard and I am determined, then only I can carry on and play for India. So yeah, I was fortunate to have the support of my family and my parents, plus my colleagues, and the kind of organizations I joined. For instance, I joined Tata Steel, when I was still in college, and they helped me quite a lot. They encouraged me to take this up seriously, and that is how I was able to fulfill my ambition of playing for my country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shrestha. Now we'll have the next question from Ritaksha.
Sir, evening, sir. Sir, so my question to you is that how does a particular strategy formulates in a particular sport, any sport at all?
What kind of strategy are you talking about? Can you be more specific?
So like you mentioned earlier that you were part of a strategical office in cricket only. And yes. I am asking about the steps which we have to take and how does the path of strategy go in a sport?
Okay. So, for instance, starting IPL was a strategy adopted by BCCI because we felt that domestic cricket does not offer enough opportunities for a player to excel, and we wanted to give them another platform to showcase their talent. Okay, so that is a particular kind of strategy to improve the quality of cricket in India, and it has benefited India in a big manner. Now, the other strategy we are talking about is a project for growth of girls' cricket in India. And now, so the strategic direction in this project is to engage with all our stakeholders. Our stakeholders are the state cricket associations, their affiliated units, the clubs, the cricket academies, the schools, the district units, the various cooperatives, the neighborhood cooperative centers. So that is the kind of work they need to do now, so that there is an inclusive growth for girls' cricket in India. Men cricket in India has grown by leaps and bounds because the number of players have grown immensely, and that's the kind of strategy we have, or that's the kind of result we are looking at when we adopt this strategy. When we have adopted this strategy to increase women cricket or girls cricket in India, so that's the kind of strategic planning we have to do in order to improve the so-called productivity or the growth of cricket in India. Similarly, there are other sports organizations who are working in this direction. Why is it that Kabaddi has reinvented itself? Why is it that we have the football league now? Why is it that we have the badminton league now? Because all these sports organizations have learned so much from the cricket organizations. If cricket organization can prosper, the other sports industry, the other sports also can do very well. And it is so heartwarming to see sports in India really growing in a big way. And I think it's all because of proper planning, of proper strategy adopted by various organizations.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So we will call it a day after one last question. I request Ashman Pratap to proceed forward. Ashmin, are you there with us? I think we might be having issue on his side. So we'll move on to Arpit Singh.
Sir, good evening, sir. My name is Arpit Singh. I'm from Patna, Bihar. Sir, I wanted to
That's my place, Arpit.
Yes. I wanted to know that who is your favorite wicket keeper and batsman in the recent and the past?
It has to be MS Dhoni because of number of reasons. One, he's a top-class performer, a wonderful human being, and I have seen him grow up. So I was a selector when he started to play for Bihar. Then he played for India. He became the captain. And then I became the selector for the Indian team. So I've literally seen him, grow as a person and grow in character and grow as a cricketer. So I would go for MS. He remains such an affable person, and I think and he's been such a wonderful role model for all the youngsters who intend to take up cricket as a professional sport.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Cheers, Arpit.
Thank you, sir. We had a great time listening to your experiences and getting to learn more. Thank you so much for devoting your time.
Thank you so much, Daksh, and thanks to all the students who had logged in. Thank you to all the administrators, to Select-U, to the headmaster of your school. It's been a wonderful experience chatting with all of you, and I leave you with two wonderful thoughts for all the youngsters. A wonderful quote by Oscar Wilde, and it says, "Be yourself. The rest is already taken." And the one by Friedrich Nietzsche, who talks about being an alchemist all the time. And if you're an alchemist, that's the only way you can change metal into gold. So my best wishes to all of you. Hope to see you soon. Hope to have more interactions in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll surely keep those quotes in mind.
Thank you.
I thank everyone else for your collaboration. This has indeed been a good session, and we look forward to have more of these in coming weeks. Until then, take care and be safe.